Welcome to today's video. We're going to do a task controller where we have to connect our UI with the blockchain using EthersJs. Remember the last time we created our Ethers provider. If we go here on the contract, so we have our Ethers provider. Then we have to call this Ethers provider on the UI. To call it on the UI, I have already created the UI, as this is not a Svelte Svelte kit tutorial to do the UI and Tailwind. I've created the form, which is to add. If you check the form, you can add the name, bind the value, disable. If you check those methods are doing nothing, like delete, update, and on mount. Here is like a fake data, so that we can, this data will be replaced by the data coming from the blockchain when we call the blockchain. So here, let's go to our requirements. Here on the requirements, first requirement is to get smart contract name. If you go to our smart contract on the backend, if you check the contract, they have to get this name. So we're going to get this name. So we won't be dealing with the smart contract. So let's get started. Let's go to our client, then task controller, then create a new task controller. Now this task controller will need our a store. On this store, like I said, I want to my store to be private. I will call it task store, which is I will call writable. It will be a writable store. Then what constructor? Then you need to create a public store that you can call on the UI, which is this dot store, which is we have to call subscribe. Subscribe. Then we will call this store on the UI. So let's open the UI. On the UI, we'll call the store. Let me finish the store first. On my store, I have to create a base store, a base state. The state of our store will need a name. For now, I will call it. It will be loading. Then we need address and balance. It's address and balance. And we'll also need the array of tasks. Then on the balance, you can say loading, or you can say let's start with 0, 0. Address will be the address of the user. Then we have to destructure the state on our store. Then now before anything, let's export this as a default. Then if we go to our state, we import our task controller. Then because we instantiate this one, we will call it a small letter because it's an object now. Then on this controller, I will destructor my store, which is store. This store, then here on my data, because this data, if we check the format of this data, is exactly as our store. So I just created this data so that it's a fake data. Then let's delete. Then here I will put my store. Then my store have everything now is calling data from the store. If I now run yarn dev, okay, let's go to client, cd client. Then if we open this one, I have to open my MetaMask. We are on the wrong network. Let me go to Polygon Mumbai. Then if you check, we have Zeromatic, we have loading here on the address, and we have loading here on the name because we don't have a name. So let's go create a name. To have a name, I prefer to do the async init. This init method will that's where I will instantiate my ethers provider. Therefore, let me call ethers provider. The ethers provider, I'm calling it from, if you check, this is a import from no, it's not that, not the scanner. I don't need the scanner, I imported wrong. So provided this one from the lib, if we check its lib contracts, it's this one from contracts. That's the one we created. Then I will call this this dot ethers provider equals to new ethers provider. Then to get our the name, because here the requirements is to get the name, I will create a private method called get name. In order to get name, I will need this ethers provider. It's an async method for which this ethers provider dot task contract. We need a task contract dot get name. This get name, then it will give me name equals to. Then we have to update then the name on our store. Then we go to this dot task store dot update. Then on the update we need a previous store. Then we destructure the previous store. Then we need a name. Then the name, this name will be equals to this name. Then we have to call this one on the init. Then we call this dot get name, so that when we initialize this method we call it on the init to call the. Then here on mount method we call task store dot init which will initialize and call the blockchain. Then if we go check it on our UI, then you see now it's calling the name from the blockchain, which is decentralized task manager. To recap what we have done, we have created our base store and created our store. Then I created this one as a private so that the UI won't update this store. That's why I call only subscribe. The UI will only subscribe to this store. Then we call the init method in order to call this provider so that this method will be initialized on the on mount. Then after initializing it will call this get method. The get method will call the name, then it will update the name. Then like here the name is updated. For next time I will go and get the details. On the details we are going to get the address and the balance of the user. Thank you. Meet on the next video. Cheers.